Good evening, everybody. I'm Victoria Cooper, and this is part 2 of the talk on CERES in the natal chart, which was given earlier on in the year. And by request, we now have the application of CERES in the chart applied to 2 lovely volunteers, Dawn, CERES, and Sarah West. We're going to start with Dawn's chart, and we're going to be looking at the natal, the progressed, and the solar arc. So here we go. I will be reading from a document that I have on another screen, so I will turn my face away, but I will sort of keep in contact with you. And please, if anybody has a question or they want to touch on something, please just feel free to butt right in. Okay. So Dawn's CERES is found in Sagittarius, in close to galactic center, in the 2nd house of values, resources, income, and it's conjunct the North Node and Lilith. And it's quincunx the ruler of 2nd house, Jupiter, found in Taurus on Algol. And I did touch on this because in the discovery chart of CERES, she was found on Algol, which is exactly where Jupiter is found in Dawn's chart. So I thought that was a striking correlation, very, very interesting, since we're looking at this particular planet. So galactic center is the center of our galaxy, symbolic of Godhead. Ceres and Lilith united here hold the scepter and orb for the goddess head. The North Node determines that this is Dawn's curriculum. The South Node falls on Betelgeuse, indicating that prior conditions, prior lifetime conditions that is, have seen considerable ease. Present conditions may express duality relating to that. So it'd be switch on, switch off. As the Lilith-Ceres conjunction has gone past exact trine in the chart to anything else, it shows she's gone beyond the need for this phase and is now moving far more into the realms of discovery of the deep feminine, that which is the divine. Interestingly, the duality connoted with Ceres is shown here by her conjunction partner, the devoted mother who went literally against hell to restore her daughter to her side, tied to the wife, Lilith, who refuses subjugation and leaves. So 2 opposing stories, 2 versions of femininity, 2 goddesses, here rolled into one unimpeded energy. Chart ruler is Pluto, found in Virgo in the 10th house, with MC ruler being the sun, the center of our solar system, bringer of light, the vivifier, the source of growth energy for all plant life, and without which none of us survive. Dawn's angles all fall in fixed signs, giving fortitude and resolve to whatever her journey brings her. However, there is also a mutable signature here as far as Ceres placement is concerned. Natal Ceres falls in Sagittarius with North Node and Lilith and the anti-vertex, along with Virgo hosting the outers Pluto and Uranus, together with Mercury. And in Pisces, we find Chiron opposing Pluto, and in Gemini, the South Node and Vertex. So all those mutable signs are well populated. The highly mutable Neptune sits near the fixed ascendant. So we have a strong theme of flexibility and morphing, transformational direction between the beneath the strength. This is echoed by the grand water trine between Neptune in Scorpio, Chiron in Pisces, and Moon in its own sign of Cancer in 1st, 4th, and 9th houses, respectively. Pluto oppositions, which we have one here opposing Chiron, Pluto oppositions have power issues going on, and from 10th to 4th, this appears to be centered from within the family, echoing issues of authority outward into the visible part of our lives. Chiron in the 4th is currently opposed by progressed Uranus, so this may well read as breaking open the buried emotions, the surfacing of what has been held hidden. Transiting Neptune is conjuncting natal Chiron, and opposing that same progressed Uranus over the next while, both tasked with washing away the residues, clearing and cleansing, finding a spiritual framework for earlier events. Whatever went on in early life, and whatever echoes now reverberate, the picture is clear. Power must be shared. This is one of Ceres' main themes. She had to share power with Pluto in order to achieve her aims. But first, power must be understood. To whom does it belong? Where is it? Who has it? Was it ever taken away, and if so, by what means? In the myth, Ceres found the perpetrator, demanded restitution, and found her power augmented by Jupiter. These were her answers to the above questions. She resolutely held on to her power. When each of us are in similar situations, we need to ask the same questions in order to find the same result. Transiting Neptune is also in trine to natal Neptune conjunct ascendant. So the issue is partly about understanding and resolving subversions of power expression from self and towards self. Is there dissipation? Has there been giving away of power? Do people misread soft power? And if so, how do we handle this? Has the feminine side been stolen in earlier life, perhaps by demands that one be this way or that way? Note Pluto, Virgo, Ceres in Jupiter's sign, all the elements of the original myth stitched into this chart. Lilith, it should also be remembered, was no pushover. She refused to take the subservience on offer and found her own resolution of the problem her own way, e.g. by walking away. Ceres' ultimate answer is recovery. She recovered the buried virgin. She brokered the deal that nullified death of her daughter, death of the crops, potential death of the planet. But it was partial. Pluto's power was subversive, and he had arranged that Proserpina's acceptance and eating of pomegranate seeds meant that he could never be entirely dismissed. In this chart, resolution is powered by non-acceptance of conditions, e.g. Lilith's method. North Node cheers it along, requiring refusal. Progressed Ceres has moved into Capricorn, still in the second house, but not far away from moving over the third house cusp. The values heralded by Ceres in Sagittarius have been hard tested by Saturn's quarters. Those values of freedom, of liberty, of justice, of higher wisdom and ultimate truth would have solidified and supported tougher times. Progressed Ceres is in square to the progressed MC-IC axis. So here we have those earlier issues brought again to the surface in different signs of Libra and Aries. But of course, I do want to touch on the point that the natal MC is in Leo, as we said, ruled by the sun. It's really important. If you think about the 11th house in a chart, in a mundane chart, we're talking about politics, which is ultimately about power. And Dawn's sun is in the 11th house, ruling the midheaven. So it's a very visible requirement that she really irons out these issues in this lifetime. And I'll go back to what I've written. Midheaven is quincunx natal Chiron this time, but progressed Ceres has reached sextile to Chiron and trine to progressed Uranus. An accommodation appears to have been reached within, but as Ceres moves into the third and the progressed IC is in 6th house Aries, more speaking forms of resolution are likely. In other words, verbalizing the deal, speaking up when things don't feel validating, claiming out loud what one wants. As we each claim our own power, others follow our example. The galactic center here is being shaken by the will of one who refuses to settle, refuses to compromise, refuses to buckle down and be dominated. The resolution here is likely to be ultimately total and of a spiritual flavor, but may not transpire in doing battle, but with Jupiterian wisdom. That wisdom is learned here by relationships. Jupiter is in 7th house, Taurus, in quincunx to the Lilith Ceres conjunction. Jupiter provides the solutions in several goes with a fair bit of swashbuckling whilst about it. Jupiter trines 11th house Mercury in the dignity of Virgo from the 7th house. So a lot of talking things through to achieve a balance of power. And yet the talking was never enough. The resolution has also to be witnessed out there. Progressed Venus moves towards a quintile from Libra to Ceres and Lilith conjunction. This quintile bestows extra special gifts, and as the descendant is ruled by Venus, the relationship arena is being highlighted again, but with a different tonality. Again, Venus is in quincunx to Jupiter in 7th, so there is more terrain to work through, but with a genial tone. So that's where we are on this one so far. Any questions arising? Any comments, reflections?
I think you've hit the nail right on the head. You're reading it all like it's like book in front of you. It's so cool. I love astrology. You're amazing.
Oh, thank you, darling.
Yeah.
Other people may not know here, but Dawn and I have a personal friendship as well. And I do know some background to Dawn's personal life, but I didn't cover that specifically because it's too private. And, I think it's things can be encompassed within a general reading anyway. And I think for Dawn, she would understand where I've touched on those issues. But without verbalizing that. So, yeah.
It's so clear.
Yes. So how do you feel about your Lilith being conjunct right there, Dawn?
I've known that this was key forever, but to have you verbalize it for me is absolutely, this whole month has been huge for me. And you're just the icing on the cake, It's amazing. Lilith being right there on Ceres. All the past is in the past. Me standing up and going, hell no.
Yes.
I'm out of here. That's what it's about.
Yeah. Well, literally hell no where it comes to Ceres. She literally said hell no. Come and get me. I'm here. I'm not giving up. Well, I think it's important also, Dawn, because what you're doing, it's so close to the galactic center. We've got transiting Saturn there, which is the reality planet. It's giving everybody a wake-up call and saying what applies in terms of your reality is also symbolic of how you relate to the divinity. So let's deal with that. So you're saying, I'm the goddess, watch me. And everybody will be watching you. And it does have a knock-on effect because when women are very strong, people sit up and take notice because they so expect the opposite. Mm-hmm. So I think you're really delivering quite some power punches here, dude. It's wonderful. It's wonderful.
Thank you so much. Yes. It feels that way.
Yeah. So I did write some more about the solar arc. Do you want me to carry on or do you want to make any more comments?
No, I love it. Carry on. Thank you.
Alrighty. Importantly, the solar arc nodes, together with solar arc Lilith and Ceres, are falling on the natal, midheaven, and IC axis. As with Ceres squaring this axis in the progress chart, the rebel element in Dawn's psyche, evidenced by Uranus on the IC and Lilith transiting here, and power-bearing urges as denoted by Ceres, must settle the issues arising from earlier life as part of the curriculum, and the imperative is louder now. Rebellion against prior conditions, whether induced by oneself or others, is on the menu. Solar arc Uranus in 12th is trining natal Vesta in 4th, and transiting Uranus is also shaking up solar arc Vesta in the 6th. So conditions cannot be settled until all inner issues are resolved. Ceres is about compromise, but here we're seeing the deal made with self. What will I allow? What is beyond the pale? The two goddesses are at the home gate, but this home is not just about domesticity. It's the inner self, the private decisions made within. Solar arc Uranus is in natal 12th, bringing flashes of self-understanding and spiritual leaps of growth. Where there remain unsolved questions, transiting Jupiter will give the opportunity for solutions in his transit of Scorpio, where he conjunct solar arc Uranus, which journey begins late 2017 into 2018. The delivery of awareness by of this inner movement has likely been brought over the last few years by solar arc Mercury in Scorpio in the first house, trining natal Pluto, and then moving to conjunct natal Neptune, ruler of the fifth house cusp. Can I let go of anything? If I take away all that I thought I was, who am I? What is likely to be healed is any sense of disconnection from self, others, the divine, any or all of these. We have the Great Mother who was disconnected from her beloved child and in turn disconnected from her role as provider. Lilith, who chose to disconnect from subservience, both corralled by the North Node into the arena of the galactic center, the most connected point possible. Ceres' prime role in the story was to reconnect, to resurrect, to restore her daughter, herself, and the world around her by engaging all that was within her reach to assist with this aim. North Node says that Dawn's process is pretty much the same and can be the inner child restored to the light of day. Notable in the solar arc chart is Mars in Libra, 11th house, squaring the Lilith-Ceres conjunction in recent months and quincunx to natal Saturn in the 4th. Again, the issue of how earlier life affects interrelationships with groups and associates and one's self-expression. Mars is also in sextile to natal Juno, pointing the attention towards committed relationships into the equation. It seems to be that the answers page for these questions may well appear as solar arc Sun moves to conjunct natal Juno. As this occurs over the next couple of years, Jupiter will have opened the door to new possibilities in this regard as he transits over the same point. Had we used converse solar arc directions, we would see a lot of activity showing up with natal moon. Pluto and Uranus would be hovering about that point, also focusing upon issues of higher femininity. And Ceres Lilith would be around the natal ascendant and moving into 12th. Time for a new version of identification with what is female and how it leads directly to reconnection to divinity. My feeling about Dawn's chart is that this lifetime is one chapter in dealing with these issues. There have been others. This time around, with Galactic Center involved, Dawn's individual journey connects on a larger scale with others in similar process, and which communal journey has a huge bearing for humanity's future. We recapture the feminine goddess for all mankind. So that's what I wrote. Any comments, questions, observations by anybody else about Dawn's chart?
I want to say that Linda touched on this as well by noting that my moon is on the Pluto's North Node, ascending node. That's also the theme. And so I just love the way the chart is recapitulating all of that, what you're reading, what she has read, the meanings behind it. It's in my life. Yeah.
Yeah. What I mean, I touched there on doing converse directions, which I find so fascinating. And there was a bit of an argument on Astro about it when we were talking about Brexit in relation to this and said, what's that? You know? And some guy piped up from Skyscript And he said, yeah, but time is just a mental construct. So, you know, it doesn't matter if you're going backwards or forwards, because it's still the snapshot of you. And because time is a quantum thing anyway, it doesn't really matter which window you're looking at things. So I think had I had extra time, I would have done a converse progressions and a converse solar arc. And I think it would be worthwhile you doing that as well, Dawn, because I think it would again reiterate. What's fascinating to me is how it reiterates the same themes.
Yeah.
You know, you're coming at it from literally a totally different angle, from the time when supposedly you didn't exist, but of course we all know we all exist all the time. But you know, it's amazing how one's presence, one's soul journey, was still very evident, mirrored way before you were born. It's beautiful. I think it's an amazing thing to watch, and it seems to open further insights, further amplification, when we do that. So, and of course I'm struggling on astro.com's sort of input box. You have to work out the year and so many months, which is hilarious, but you do get there, because not many systems do primary directions. I think Solar Arc does it, but I don't have Solar Fire. Solar Fire, I mean, yeah. So I think these are really meaty charts, Dawn, and you know, with all of those oppositions and squares and things, you know, you've got numerically you appear to have more of those with these chart elements than you have the trines, but you've got that beautiful grand trine there. It's absolutely lovely. And the Chiron, the moon, and the Neptune, it's all, to me, it's about healing the emotions for everybody. Because we can't go back to the divine when we're feeling ragged and angry and frustrated. We're just not in the right space. We have to clear all of that stuff so that we can recognize who we are and go back to our spiritual destiny. So,
Absolutely right. Absolutely right.
yeah. So beautiful charts, and thank you so much for volunteering those. It was really, really lovely of you to let me talk about those charts. So, anybody else, any observations, questions, comments before I move on to Sarah's chart? No? No.
I had a question. How does Ceres differ from the moon?
How does she differ from the moon?
Mm-hmm.
The moon is about the childbirth, the feeding. There are a lot of similarities, the feminine, the goddess, all of that sort of stuff. But Ceres is also about power broking. She's about compromise. She's about resurrection. She's about brooking no obstacle. These are things that are not so denoted by the moon. The moon is more gentle, more receptive. Ceres isn't really very receptive. She's very dynamic and out there. She's very, that sort of jargon of the business world, proactive. She is a provider of harvests as well. I mean, if you think about the moon having sway over the oceans and emotions, whereas Ceres is more earthed. She's got more say over the harvests and things literally growing up from the ground. And then because that's her domain, you know, hell comes up what's his name? Pluto comes up out of the volcano, takes her precious daughter down to hell. In a way, that's the underbelly of what she's doing. She's using the surface of the earth to provide sustenance. And what she does, she goes to the underbelly of that. And she has a good look and says, I'm not taking this, you know, give me back my daughter. So she's a fighter. And I don't think the moon is. Does that help to answer some of your question, Wanda?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah. Anybody else? No? Okay. So, Linda, would you be able to bring up Sarah's charts then, please? And then we'll start with that. Lovely. Thank you very much. So, you ready, Sarah? Okay. So, the progressed and natal chart. To begin this discussion, Sarah advised me, as I cannot see from birth data, I was just given the provided chart, so I just read from that. Sarah advised me that her declinations reveal an out-of-bounds Ceres and Mercury. So I've included this in my appraisal of her natal, progressed and solar arc charts. My initial response was that out-of-bound planets tend to take over the chart expression, as the highlighted energies tend to dominate other chart factors, depending obviously on the individual charts concerned. A couple of writers, I did some research on this because I'd not come across that, although Ceres goes out of bounds quite frequently, but I hadn't particularly done any research on that up to that point, so I was glad you pointed that out. So, but online, a couple of writers insultingly claim that out of bounds Ceres gives a mollycoddling, mothering style, and quite a few writers reduce Ceres to a simple role of mother. To me, and to someone with an out-of-bounds Ceres, this is a dramatic distortion by diminution of Ceres' identity. Again, this fits into her story. At one point, she was considered to be a mere asteroid and has now been reclassified as a dwarf planet. So the diminution of her status precedes elevation to her proper role. Natal Ceres here is in the 11th house, concerned with groups, and in Aquarius, ruled by Uranus, natural ruler of the 11th sign of the common wheel, the great divider, the great awakener. Ceres is about duality and the division she experienced with the loss of her daughter Proserpina. So we've got that echoing of the theme with Uranus, the divider, and the divisions that had been experienced by Ceres. Ceres here is in quincunx to her nodes, which fall in 5th and 11th houses, ruled by Virgo and Pisces. Here, Ceres cannot see her Virgoan child, the 5th house. The nodes are squared by natal Venus and trine the out-of-bounds Mercury at the midheaven in Capricorn. Echoing Dawn's chart emphasis relating to Ceres at the galactic center, here we see Sarah's sun right there, which we'll come to later. Venus and Mars form a large part of Sarah's story. First, we see natal ascendant in Aries. Funnily enough, and I noticed this because I've been working with this chart quite a lot recently, dealing with Brexit discussions, but the angles are almost exactly the same as the 1066 William Conqueror UK chart. Yes, so you must feel a very big affinity with the UK. I would hazard a guess, yeah. With the descendant falling on the fortuitous fixed star Spica. All Sarah's angles are cardinal. Progressed Venus, ruler of descendant, is still within a degree of conjunction to natal Ceres. So we have the genial charm, the provision for or commingling with others, signposted by the 11th house. Considering Ceres' original role in the myth of being the provider for all humanity by means of her harvests. However, Ceres is about duality. So in the 11th house, in the airy and tends to be aloof and fixed sign of Aquarius, we might witness a dichotomy between belonging and total freedom, or a questioning of which is more important to me, my interpersonal relationships, or the gang, the association, the party. This is massive. I believe that for Sarah, this out-of-bounds influence writes this questioning very large in her life. Of course, Uranus and Aquarius denotes astrology as well, and this may well be the vehicle through which this question applies. Transiting Uranus is, of course, shaking everything up. In June 2016, Uranus and Ceres were conjunct directly on Sarah's ascendant. Power sharing, freedom, necessity to compromise was the result between the EU and the UK, For Sarah, the players probably differed, but the themes remained the same, e.g., if you can't tango with me, you must leave. Eris remains at this point. This house can determine, Eris is ferocious on this point, yes. This house can determine wealth. And we know that Ceres speaks about abundance and its opposite. That's the 11th house, rather. Yeah. Transiting Jupiter will soon trine natal Ceres, and Jupiter turns direct tomorrow, by the way, from Libra. And as Ceres can denote abundance when aspected by Jupiter at the same degree from any sign, Sarah might like to be on alert to facilitate this, as Jupiter will also be in trine to progressed Venus conjunct this point. Also, transiting Ceres is in trine to natal Ceres and transiting Jupiter as she moves from Sarah's second house to the third house. Out of bounds Ceres ups the ante. Strike out for the prizes. If there's low-hanging fruit anywhere, Sarah, go for it, because this is an opportunity time for you, okay? There is a wide sesquisquadrate in Sarah's chart between Pluto and Ceres, the two key players in the myth. Pluto, the kidnapper, in the 6th, whilst Ceres is in the 11th. Just as in the story, Pluto wants to enact containment in quotidian lifestyles, while Ceres wishes for freedom for herself and others, to play in a larger arena, to be concerned with larger issues. She is itchy to resist the power of daily life, which appears to be something of an anchor, at times unwanted. Note that this same 6th house, we find natal Uranus conjunct vertex. If a relationship of any nature is to survive in Sarah's world, it must provide excitement, larger than immediate personal concerns, and it must deliver greater understanding to her of her world. Ideally, any job or setup would be geared up to reach out to others, maybe group to group, perhaps facilitated by technology such as the web. Her progressed midheaven is now in Aquarius, touching on the astrological interests and writing, but notice the IC touching Vesta. The question arises from a different chart signature, the same question, yeah. Home or work? Domestic comfort or intellectual freedom? Small scale or larger scale? Back to out of bounds natal Mercury for a moment. We find this on the midheaven and trine the 5th house south node, ruling the 6th house cusp. Progressed Mercury and Moon are being transited by Pluto in natal 10th. The form of writing may change. The topic of interest may alter. The method by which money appears may take a different direction. Note the transiting Pluto's trine to the 2nd house cusp. Political or financial topics may assume greater status. The home setup may alter to accommodate these changes. Preceding my take on the solar arc chart for a moment, compare solar arc Pluto, square to natal Ceres, and trine natal nodes. Big changes are afoot. Again, I love to do the reverse progressions, and had we done that, we would note Sarah's converse progressed sun carrying the natal galactic center flavor at about 10 degrees Scorpio. In the 7th house, in sextile and trine to the MC-IC axis. Home or work? Can I do both? Can I have freedom at the same time as being settled? How do I reach everybody from my personal space? These questions are written all over the chart. Back to Mars, and we see that progressed Ceres was activating natal Mars, chart ruler, in recent history, again in this focal 11th house. Around that time was a progressed new moon in the 9th house of Sagittarius. Ceres also sextiled natal moon Saturn, and prior to that was in quincunx to Lilith in 4th and prior to that, trine to natal Jupiter. Moon Saturn wants to be taken seriously, but can also be prone to lowered vitality and mood. The new moon on the galactic center was also trining Vesta, again bringing her into focus, which will be echoed once more by the current transit of the North Node right there. Transiting South Node is due to conjunct natal Ceres over the next year, so the duality of Ceres may spring forth, her fixed side, her unwillingness to compromise, her determination to achieve at any and all costs. Ceres, far more than motherhood, is about power sharing after challenging conditions. It can also be about depression if achievements are not readily forthcoming. That would be echoed by that moon Saturn. So that's something to just be self-protective about. 11th house is also about hopes and wishes, so the focus may turn to those at times. The presence of Mars may well have provided a spur to take action to bring forth the required results, with the energy come from Lilith igniting that theme. Lilith doesn't compromise either. She wants what she wants, and she won't accept what she doesn't want. Goddesses don't buckle. Out of bounds goddesses supercharge the strength. It is worth remembering here that at one point, Ceres was considered to be of one planetary entity with Pluto, and at one point they split. She still has the Plutonian power. Sorting out is what is required. Where are the limits? Where can the prizes be found? What do I need to undertake to get them? Feisty chart ruler Mars with outer bound Ceres, a formidable combination. Note the presence of progressed Mars in dignity in Aries, but in 12th, asking for recognition of the Martian dynamic. Recent contact with Chiron indicates contests or arguments or battles of diverse sort, sometimes covert battles with Neptune as ruler of the 12th house cusp. Energies of anger, painful conflicts now await healing balm. Eris conjunct ascendant ensures that Sarah is no pushover. Sarah's Chiron return is due in Aries in a few years, giving the imperative and opportunity to clear up any of the above that still lingers. Final note that transiting Neptune is right on the nodal axis in Pisces, again in the 11th house. To whatever the freedom question resolves, spiritual solutions will be part of that. The movement of progressed Neptune into its own co-ruled sign of Sagittarius demands it. Okay, so that was my take on your progressions. We had a little bit of preview into the solar arc there.
Thank
So
you.
any questions, comments?
Oh, yeah, there's so much you shared, trying to absorb it all. Definitely the balance between home and being a mother and work. That's a constant since I became a mother. Let's see here, the power play that goes with it, with the fact that I divorced my daughter's father. So there's, that is always in the mix as well until she's off on her own. So she's 10 and a half now. So we got 8 more years to go. So definitely work in technology. So when you brought up the 6th house and the Uranus, that's allowing me to reach out into, you know, the working world, just because of the technology allows me to do so. And also you talked about writing and the topics changing, which is interesting because I've been working on a book for about 7.5 years, trying to finish that, but I have other books that are wanting to come out. So I have to choose. So I'm trying to finish up one before I dive into the others, but I'm starting to gather research. So there's that, which is interesting that I really not talked with anybody about that yet. Because one is personal and one is around astrology. And the first one is also personal, spiritual opening that brought me to astrology. What else? You shared so much. I don't know if I can think of them all. Yeah, the underlying power of Ceres, which is very interesting because I never thought about the connection that you just made with the Pluto and the Ceres, and yet she has that that power within her, right? Like I'll have to sit with that. I haven't, but I can see that, you know, it's like her archetype is about her grieving was huge, a part of her story, right? And so I think if we do the proper process of grieving, we enable ourselves to free up that, how we show up more fully. So I think that's an important part of this, an important part of my own life process.
Yeah.
If that makes any sense.
For her is the spur to take activity. She challenged death, literally. She went against Pluto because she's made of the same stuff. She was the one person that was able to go and say, "Oi, you can't do this. Give her back." So, you know, whereas most people would say, "Right, it's death, it's final. Oh dear, let's go and grieve." She's saying, "Yeah, you can grieve, but then you can overcome stuff. So get out there and do it." So that's kind of what her message is. It's very, you know, the kind of mother, there are two different types of mothers. The sort of mother that wants to hold her baby and have her around her and spoil the baby. And then the baby hits 18, it goes to college, it goes to a job, and it's completely lost, doesn't know what's expected, and all of this stuff. Whereas Ceres is much more the sort of mother and says, "Oh, darling, I totally love you. You're really good at this. Why don't you go and do it?" So there's that sort of, she's bringing harvest. And I think that harvest is from her progeny as well. Everything she touches. Yeah. So you're bringing out, Ceres was bringing out the potential of the earth every year for the harvest. So, you know, in terms of mothering, she does that with her charges.
Yeah. Which is interesting that you would put it that way, because in my mind, I think how I am as a mother, I literally think in my daughter's life, what her development years are and what I'm bringing to her that will enable her to be successful in the real world, not just that she's gone to school and she's gotten book smarts, but that she knows how to cook a meal, do her laundry, get the oil changed in the car, all these basic things that I've heard being in the college system. Some kids don't learn, and then they're struggling with it when they're, 19 years old. So I kind of think of that like, okay, what do I want to teach her this year or bring to her awareness? Yeah.
Yeah, well, also it's your moon Saturn there, because whatever mothering you do is going to have a strong flavor of practicality and reality. You get your pocket money if you do this household duty, or here's where you take responsibility. So that's the style of mothering, is delivering this, because life is tough, and the mother in the jungle, in the nature, in the wild, is there to fit out her offspring for when she's no longer there. So, and I think that's the sort of mothering style that I think you would be imparting to your daughter. Okay. And let me just go on through the solar arc bit, Sarah, and then we can talk some more. I just want to give you my thoughts on that. So Ceres is also about unconditional love. It is easier to offer this to groups than to individuals, as less of our personal entanglement is required. In the solar arc chart, we see Sarah's solar arc Ceres moving to conjunct vertex over the next few years in the 12th house, having cleared any crises from Chiron's position. The vertex axis forms a grand cross to the midheaven and IC axis. Ceres will around the same time square that axis and oppose Uranus. So if a relationship comes to the fore, it will require removal of obstacles before it can proceed. This direction may also express itself as a need to perform some kind of self-abnegating role, perhaps one with more seclusion than is familiar. A relationship built on a direction like this may well show an on-off flavor, where from the outside, it may not look like a committed relationship at all, as so much freedom is stitched in. Again, Ceres duality showing up. Solar arc IC falls upon the part of fortune in the 5th house, so it may be that something favorable in this vein arises on the home front. Natal Neptune is in square to the solar arc MC-IC axis, so again, Sarah is looking at very big changes on the horizon, with perhaps some degree of abandonment of previous goals as not being big enough. Transiting Saturn is moving over her 9th house Sun, recently retrograde and later in the year in forward motion, and at the same time squaring natal Pluto and widely natal Chiron. Travel, responsibilities, writing on the web, freedom to pursue inner quests, the need to ensure that all wished for experiences are undertaken. Solar arc Mercury is directly on Mars in 11th house in Pisces. Remembering Mercury is out of bounds, this galvanizes the impetus to write. The square to natal Neptune, host of the conjunction, might indicate issues of past life, end of life, general fiction, demystification, dealing with disappointments, anger management, fraud perpetrated by guru types, all coming as possibilities for subject matter. Mars is chart ruler, so there is some sense that the identity itself hinges on acceptance of the need to write. Solar arc midheaven is following and will conjunct in about 3 years, possibly indicating some urgency in development of what transpires now. Solar arc Mars, meanwhile, is 3 years away from conjuncting ascendant. Residual anger may become more conscious at that point. With natal Chiron falling in 12th, it can be hard without Neptune's help from the 8th house, which can be psychic techniques, to access exactly what it is that feels unsettled, what needs addressing, what needs healing. As Chiron falls at far midpoint of Uranus and Pluto, essentially it talks about power and freedom issues. Again, yeah. Does one have to have power to feel free? What sort of power can one have? Solar arc Pluto in Scorpio indicates the vehicle of learning is from intimate relationships for now, but in a few years, as he moves into 8th house, it may come from more esoteric activity in due course, with a potential culmination of that when he reaches natal Neptune. Perhaps this has already come onto the radar as transiting Pluto conjuncted solar arc Neptune in the 10th. The August 21st eclipse of this year will fall on Ceres' part of Fortune and Vesta, and forming a sesquisquadrate with natal Ceres and the solar arc Sun. Again, the question of freedom or settled commitment in relationships coming up for examination. So that's my take on your solar arc. Does that
lots, because you're talking about writing again, and the writing around, you gave a whole slew of examples, and one of them was about death. So in my first book that I'm trying to finish up literally this year, is a main theme about the book is around anger that's hidden from early trauma, but then how it can come out as you go through your spiritual awakening. But the part of that is also a storyline tied around someone dying and dreams. So it's all that going on there. You nailed it.
I love astrology. It's all in the chart. It's amazing.
I know, right? Oh, there's so much more you had in there about freedom. Yeah. And what did you put on that? You said something about what was the theme? The repeating theme again about something in freedom.
The Mars Pluto thing. It's where were we?
Because that is ongoing, and I think it's getting heightened.
Power.
Like how. Go ahead.
Freedom and power.
Freedom and power. Yeah, like if you have enough. I don't know, a combination of things to enable yourself to be free, but that's free from a material perspective, right? Versus what I call the inner freedom, from past and releasing things that, but it takes work. So there's there's two things going on there. There's the power piece from enabling yourself to be free. And there was a recent entrepreneur online on Facebook or something that talked about this, like you work to do the work that you want to do, so it helps you be free. It's like, I don't know what he was saying. He was talking about like how we train a dog, a pet dog, and it sets him, you know, the ability by doing the right work to set yourself free. But it requires discipline, and then you have more freedom to do the things you love. So there's a combination there, that balance between the two that kind of sparked in my mind.
I think it's likely to apply everywhere. I think it's likely to apply in your creative life, in your spiritual life, in your relationship life, in your work life, in the contract you may make with a publisher, all of these things. You know, how much do I want to be tied up in a 4-year contract for delivery with this guy, or, you know, everything. And what about my ex? You know, now we've got freedom, let's deal with the power. It's reflected everywhere, I think, for you.
That's going on for sure.
Yes. And I think, you know, when we go through lessons in life, life brings people and circumstances that can be really challenging and horrible, because it makes the lesson unavoidable. We can't just dismiss it. And, you know, as with Dawn's chart, you know, it's the curriculum. The North Nodes were right there with her Ceres, you know, right there, you know, being Wonder Woman. And, you know, this is what Ceres is denoting. You know, where are you, Wonder Woman? And would Wonder Woman deal with all of this crap that someone's delivering you? No. Hello, you know, there's a solution. We're going to find it, because then when we find that one thing, or that one issue that just needs to slot in our psyche differently, everything can just fall into place, like a pack of cards just sort of settles, rather than going into an Alice in Wonderland mess. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. The fact that you bring up Wonder Woman, which I'm going to see the movie today with my daughter after school. And then I'm an Aries rising, and that Mars, where it's at in this whole mix and power, I've had to learn, I've had experienced my power in different ways, from my career and how I handled it there, and how I speak up or how I don't speak up, or how I put my foot in my mouth, you know, Sagittarius here. And also my personal life, that's where I was more challenged with how I would speak up for myself, and how I would set boundaries, or how to reset boundaries over and over again. That's an ongoing theme that I realize it kind of, it's a constant I have to keep working at, because that's with my Mercury on the mid, right there on the midheaven. I think it's a part of that, like being able to speak up.
Just one parting shot. Your Neptune is in 8th house.
Yes.
So I would say to you, you know, esoteric topics, maybe develop mediumship as well.
Oh, yes. That's part of my first book too. Psychic awareness, and yes.
Yeah. Anyway, again, Sarah, thank you very much for letting me look at your chart and discuss that. It's been fascinating, both you and Dawn. Really lovely. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate the opportunity very much. Yeah.
Thank you for your sharing.
Yeah. Big hugs, big love, girls. You.